Hello and welcome to another episode of Earth911's Sustainability in Your Ear, the podcast conversation with a changemaker working to accelerate the transition to a sustainable carbon neutral society. I'm your host, Mitch Ratcliffe. Let's talk plastic. Most of the plastic introduced over the past 75 years is still sitting in landfills, and our plastic recycling system is in crisis. Processing capacity cannot keep up as plastic use continues its steady march. A recent Greenpeace report declared that plastic recycling simply doesn't work. We think it's an overstatement, but the system definitely needs an upgrade. We think Greenpeace's conclusion is fatalistic and premature because we do have the ability to do better. Giving up on plastic recycling today is like expelling a kindergartner from school because they aren't ready to pass Harvard's admissions test. So what can we do? Making the recycling system work may require incentives, but only 10 states have bottle bills that provide small payments for returning plastic bottles. Besides reducing our consumption of single-use plastic packaging, new legislation or private support are needed to turn the corner with plastics recycling. Our guest today is David Katz, founder of Plastic Bank, a social enterprise that partners with consumer products companies to create incentive programs in Southeast Asia, Latin America, and Africa that help prevent plastics from reaching waterways, seas, and the ocean. He joined us earlier this year, and we wanted to have him back to share an update as well as discuss the Greenpeace report. Plastic Bank has partnerships with S.E. Johnson, Henkel, and other consumer packaged goods companies. Plastic Bank pays individuals in emerging economies to collect plastic when they turn it in at more than 600 Plastic Bank branch locations. The collected plastic is recycled to make social plastic. It's a feedstock or raw material for making new products. You can learn more about Plastic Bank at www.plasticbank, all one word, plasticbank.com. Welcome back to the show, David. How are you doing today?
Oh, Mitch, I'm amazing and remarkable. Thank you for having me back.
How's the weather up there in Vancouver? Are you settling into the long gray like we are down here?
Yeah, it's the long gray. It's the period of dark following a profound period of drought and a profound period of warming, which is very alarming as well. I didn't know if I should, be enjoying the warm weather or be concerned.
Well, and punctuated by a terrible smoke event. Times they're changing. So, hey, look, when you joined us about 8 months ago, Plastic Bank had about 30,000 collectors. You've captured about 99 million pounds of plastic. How's the progress been since then? Where are you at these days?
And we continue to grow exponentially. It took us 7 years to get to the first billion bottles collected, the equivalents. It took a year to get to the second billion and just around 10 months to get to the third billion. We continue to grow. We've opened Cameroon and Thailand, and we're now investigating the rest of North Africa as well. I identify Tunisia and Algeria as great opportunities as we tackle debris in the Mediterranean. It's relevant and important, and NEC is. And we're focused on areas of poverty. There's lots of work to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, companies can get involved, and you work with a number of them. We mentioned them in the intro, but individuals can also become an ocean steward, and at various levels of subscription. So how much plastic can I expect to recover by contributing $20 a month or $100 a month, for instance?
I thank you. And it's a great segue, but I think it's more important to recognize that everyone who is listening is a powerful steward, whether they know it or not. They're making change. So every day you buy something, you are voting. You need to remember that. And certainly you can participate at plasticbank.com. You can certainly figure out your own neutrality. You can figure out what volume of plastic you're consuming every year. But more importantly, I need you to make a daily action. I need you to stand up right now and make a decision to use as little as possible, to let organizations know, let your retailer know that you're standing forward to buy things that won't end humanity. I mean, it's really past Earth911. I mean, I think it's really beautiful, but the conversation is not about the earth or the ocean, which we know will restore themselves profoundly, comprehensively. It is the brink of extinction for humanity that we need to be focused on. And that is going to occur only when we have a movement of people making appropriate daily decisions and to exhibit to brands and to business that we're standing for something different.
So I want to dig into that a little more. So your formula for solving the plastics and climate crisis, which are intertwined, is cut down on the use of plastic packaging, standardize. Tell us
everything, and really inside of it, it's more about the way of thinking, because we are ultimately still only collecting the dust of the manufacturing of the material, the dust. 3 billion bottles, it's dust, it's nothingness. And all of our new people who are trying to enter the space and create change, we're still only collecting the dust of it all. What we're really standing forward for is a new way of thinking, a regenerative economy, where every purchase, every transaction can repair humanity. It will never be a world without plastic, ever.
Right.
And we can communicate that if humanity was to exist in another 500 years, it would be in part because of the material. It's about stewarding the material to such an element that it never becomes waste to begin with. That's the idea here.
But one of the things that many of our readers complain about is the fact that the chasing arrows around plastics that they simply can't recycle locally. And do you think that we need to be a lot more stringent about what we call recyclable at this point?
We have so much to do, and we need to continue to design powerfully, honestly design for circularity, honestly design for recycling. Single material packaging instead of these multi-layers or multi-materials that are impossible to recycle. No, the challenge is not that the material is not recyclable. It's just that in the United States, and we're chatting about in North America, and that's not the major contributor to marine debris and other environmental debris. But in that area, it's not financially positive to recycle. It's not that the material is not recyclable. It's just that they haven't figured out yet how to make it profitable. So in the capitalist society that is America, that's the challenge. And it's not recycling or plastic, it's capitalism that is the challenge. No, I'm a capitalist, but I'm a benevolent capitalist. I'm a social capitalist where I believe in doing business for good and that there's profitability and immense profitability in regenerating and repair and stewarding everyone in the supply chain, stewarding everyone, every stakeholder. But traditional capitalism that is always in the pursuit of quarterly result and cutting cost, and that's the challenge. We want to talk about climate change, but it's business change we need to talk about.
Well, you talked about voting when we shop, and I think that's absolutely dead on. Do you see those votes starting to count with the consumer packaged goods companies?
Starting to, yes. They understand that they need to invest in what will be and not what is. I mean, it's a basic premise in business. I need to now invest in what will be. What will be is a regenerative economy. What will be is a purpose economy. And it's not even what we think of the consumer today or the new consumer. It's the generation past that consumer. It's the 13, 14, 15-year-old that's even more passionate than the Greta generation. That's the new paradigm. And that Greta generation, as they become stewards, as they become parents, that next generation will be profoundly shifting. I look at my 17-year-old whose pride in her vintage clothing is apparent. Like they go vintage clothing shopping. I love that it's not used, it's vintage. They put a beautiful spin on it. Moving away from fast fashion and using new polyesters and other things to destroy the planet.
Now, where would you describe us? You said we've only collected the dust. Are we still very early in the adoption curve, just even before early adopters?
Super early. And then nothing has really been designed for circularity till now. And now we see some great organizations that are making a shift to use powerfully uphold their commitments to 100% recycled content and regenerative and, different practices. I mean, we see great organizations, but that's not occurring around the world. The Unilevers and the Procter & Gambles and the Coca-Colas of the world, they're not making it any easier. They put a spin on it and say, hey, let's use lighter packaging. Let's use less material. Look how good look what we're doing in the world, everyone. We're going to use less material per bottle. Isn't that amazing? Well, no, it's not. And in fact, the intended consequence is that the value of the bottle now is less. So when you're looking at the financial return of the profitability of recycling in America, it's become less profitable because you have to collect more bottles to make less money. And in fact, they should be adding material to it. They should be making it heavier so it's more apt to be recycled. So it's more worthy to go and collect that bottle.
That's an interesting. It's almost a paradoxical problem.
It is, yeah.
So, how's the uptake of your recycled plastic?
Good. We're ultimately, our demand outweighs the current supply. And so we continue to work on the supply chain so we can return more material. What we're working on is building a pipe so that material that would otherwise have been discarded, burnt, thrown in the river has the ability at least to be returned to manufacturing at least once. Mm-hmm. At least once. And of course, it should be returned in this perpetuity of circularity, but at least we start. So
we've been tracking the purchases and supply of recycled PET, for instance, the bottle plastic. Mm-hmm. It goes up and down. Mm-hmm. You would expect it to consistently go up, or is this simply a cyclical reflection of what's going on in the economy and
the economy at the same time, and all those things, and this perceived contraction, mm-hmm. and petroleum pricing and inflation and all of these public companies that have made commitments to profitability. The profitability trumps all else. It's sick. I mean, they could do it another way. They could be profitable and create change in the world, but they don't look that way. What is easy is the path of least resistance. That's what we're facing. That's what we're facing with society, with the consumer as well. Oh, it's easier. It's the path of least resistance.
Well, and the rubber meets the road at Plastic Bank with the individuals doing the collection. Yeah, I think, your point about the weight of the material is important to understand, mm-hmm. about incentives. Mm-hmm. But let's talk a little about the benefits in the communities where people are collecting. So much beauty occurring. Well, we get to witness the end of poverty. Like, it's so profound. Like, it's so touching. It's like to be there with people who have now a sense of pride and the ability to use the material as a sense of currency, where they can have access to things that they didn't have before. We have all kinds of remarkable stories where people were able to change their lives, feed their family, educate an additional child, have an insurance product so that a husband that gets sick, the family's not destitute because they had an insurance policy. So many beautiful, profound stories of what's occurring. That's what we do. We look for the value in things. We want to reveal it. Well, and when this happens, there's an actual economic flow. There's money flowing through. There's money, exactly, out of that community. So it's not necessarily, here's the thing, and here's the paradigm that we operate in. The paradigm is not necessarily the bottle. Okay, well, let's look at the bottle differently. Great. And we use bottle as a metaphor. We look at the bottle differently. Great. Now it's no longer just a bottle. What else could it be? Well, it's not necessarily just money. What else could it be than just money? Well, it's not just necessarily medical insurance. That's not maybe it, or illness insurance. What else could it be? Well, ultimately, when we look inside of it, what did it provide? What was the value it provided? And it provides the opportunity to end poverty. See, that's a different paradigm. It's not the material or the money, but what you can get with it that is the giant multiplier. And that, I think, is a paradigm that we can start to implement in other processes globally. Now, do you have a sense of the comparable income for being a plastic bank collector and the general income in the areas? And I know there are a lot of them. It's profoundly, it shifts. And in this conversation, it's not about replacing people's incomes. It's a gig economy model. That's what we are. We're the Uber for recycling, period. It's all material resources. We're ultimately material agnostic. It's about converting the physical to the digital, providing anyone that may even be encountering paper or aluminum or anything to return the material and have that value then provided into a space that they have access to spending it with. That's the beauty of it. And yeah, we've had people go from 60 cents to $6. We've had all kinds of profound stories like that. But it's just the additional income that the family needs. You see, we'll only make the change when the household leader, the mom, the dad, sees it not as waste anymore, but additional income for themselves. That's when the change will occur. When every household collects, retains, and returns their household material. It's not waiting for the poorest of the poor, the abject illiterate, to go out and try to earn a meager existence by going through garbage cans or going through the landfill to try to pick up that we're discarding. There's no change in that. Society doesn't change in that paradigm. So it's got to be a paradigm shift. Well, you've gone through that yourself. You said of founding the company that you thought that the real gift of the day that you did it was the realization that you didn't need to create the company, that you needed to become the person who could.
Yes.
So how's the process in 9 years of building Plastic Bank changed to you?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. It continues to unfold. It's crazy, Mitch. It's crazy what continues to unfold for me. And what's landing with me now even more profoundly than ever is that it's not the Plastic Bank that's ever going to be the solution, but it's the thinking of Plastic Bank. It's the profitability. It's becoming a social enterprise unicorn. It's about exhibiting a $1 billion company that arrived so because of its gift to society, and the profitability lies there. I believe and I know that more of what I'm becoming is the thought of it all. It's the thinking that we need to continue sharing to elicit an army of other entrepreneurs also looking to create $1 billion organizations. That is the greater movement behind Plastic Bank. And yet it continues to powerfully unfold in who I am.
So what would your advice be to somebody who's thinking about tackling waste or climate by starting a company?
To make the decision to start. See, there's the one thing about thinking about starting a company, and it's another thing to start. There's one thing to make the decision to go, yes, I decided. Where most people get lost in the decision, they're afraid to decide. I love the quote that the road, make a decision, right or wrong. The road of life is paved with flat squirrels who couldn't decide.
So we were also talking about the adoption curve earlier. There's a moment later on after you start the company when you hit the hard part. It's described as the chasm by Jeffrey.
Yeah.
What's your advice for getting over that? And I know you're still fighting your way through it. So you're right in the mix. Tell us about how to stay focused in those challenging times.
I'm focused on what is right. I know what is right. I know that people don't say no to me. They don't say no to Plastic Bank. They say no to the stewardship of humanity and the planet. I don't stand for that. It's nothing personal. This is the thing. I don't take anything personally. It's got nothing to do with me. And I think that's the big paradigm for a lot of the entrepreneurs. And my entire life based in entrepreneurship, all of my friends all of my social community are entrepreneurs. I recognize the frailty inside of it, that people believe that they will be made wrong if they fail. Oh, I failed. That means something about me. And so many people will not make the decision to begin because they're afraid they will be affirmed their worst fear that they weren't good enough.
It's the sense of imposter syndrome.
That on everything that falls inside of that. So move that aside, get out of the ego, go towards what you know to be true, what is important. And in this conversation on your channel, this is about stewardship of humanity. This is what this is about. This is about creating change. And that is where I go towards. And I will die trying.
So the reason that I wanted to talk to you today as well is that Greenpeace issued a report that basically damns plastic recycling. I think that's the top line finding. What's your take on their conclusion? And what can we learn from what you've learned around the world?
Shame on them. Shame on them. It's one thing to say it doesn't work. It's another thing to say, how do we make it better? Yeah. Here's ideas. Here's an opportunity. And this and that. But these conversations that include the word but, recycling, but it doesn't work. What does that do? All it does is diminish any opportunity. What conversation does that give into society, into humanity? How does that land for the 20-year-old say, it doesn't work anyhow? How about, and it needs to improve, and here are ways, and here's a methodology, and we need to stewardship single material packaging, and we need to do these things. That's a different conversation.
Their conclusion to me is the flat squirrel perspective. That they think that we've already been run over and there's no getting forward. And critics are valuable, but fatalistic critics are not.
A critic never changed the world.
This is a great place to take a quick break. We'll be right back. We're back to continue the conversation with David Katz, founder of Plastic Bank. You can find out more about Plastic Bank at plasticbank.com. So let's talk more about Greenpeace. The research focused particularly on U.S. PET processing capacity. PET, polyethylene terephthalate, is, I think I said it right, is the plastic used in bottles. It stands at about 21% in 2022 in the United States. How does that compare with the regions where you are? I mean, do you have a sense of the efficacy of the programs in Asia or the other emerging economies?
Less than that. Like, honestly, like, where we operate, there's no food.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no recycling. Please. Come on, everyone. Like, honestly, like when the majority of land-based material is entering the environment, the marine ecosystem is coming from areas of poverty. Yeah. Why is it coming from areas of poverty? Because it's the least expensive way to bring and distribute consistent foodstuffs and materials, medicines, and everything else that the emerging need inexpensively. So plastic is used to distribute cost effectively to the world's emerging. I get that. I get the idea behind it. I get it. And there is no methodology, no system, no recycling to even collect the other solid materials, the other waste materials. That's not even being collected. Someone comes around with a truck and a shovel and picks up what's been discarded in the streets. So there's no recycling. It wasn't designed that way. Here's the problem. The problem is, the opportunity is to now begin offering materials with a supply chain that returns the packaging. So here, great. I get happy to distribute everything that I want, and I collect the material back as a bit of a reward so that they can actually purchase more. It doesn't pollute. It doesn't cost the society. The government can better support the organization that does that. There's all kinds of benefit in creating and designing not just the circularity of the material, but the supply chain.
Well, I think we're just coming to grips with the fallacy that from the industrial era that throwing stuff away had no impact on us. Clearly, we now understand how much it does. But so let me ask this. How can we take what you've learned and begin to apply it here in the States? Should a manufacturer be required to fund the recycling system for the materials that they use?
Yes.
Yes, they should. Should that be a government mandate?
Listen, I'm not waiting on government. I'm not waiting on business. Okay. I'm doing what I need to do as an entrepreneur. That's number one. Because in that conversation, I don't want people to sit back and wait for some utopic,
solution to just appear.
Yeah. I'll wait because then no. What you get to do is you get to steward it. And what you get to actually do, I think that the real gift here is that you need to don't buy stuff that isn't made with recycled content or regenerative content. And when you go in, do you want to make a big change? Ask the store manager, walk in, say, I love shopping here. It's my most regular place. I'm making shifts in my life. I want to buy products that repair the earth. Mm-hmm. Can you show me which ones you have? Even if they're dumbfounded, which they won't be because there's now there is a emergence of that category. But when you ask it, you will powerfully continue to exhibit the demand for the material. Let me assure you, the brands do not care about you. You are not the customer of the brand. Fact.
The retailer.
Retailer is the customer of the brand. You are the customer of the retailer. The retailer will do what you communicate. You need to communicate to the retailer, and you need to invite every single friend you have and everyone else that shops at that store to demand that the retailer produces those things. And if they don't, you'll shop online, won't go there, or whatever else you want to say. They will tell the brand, this is what the consumer is looking for. This is what I will buy. I will buy more of that product on my shelves because that's the way it's going. That's how you make change.
So the labeling that is necessary for people to be able to quickly identify this stuff, do we need more certifications or should we actually put more teeth in the recyclability label?
Yes.
We need both?
Yes. We need it all. We need it all, everyone. Like, oh my goodness, everyone. Like, it's just so like, it's not the ocean or the earth, everyone. It's humanity. Yes. We're at the brink of extinction, for freak's sakes. It's crazy. It's
Well, now California recently introduced a more aggressive bottle bill and plastics bill. Do we need more of that? Could California drive?
Yes, we need to be doing all of those things. Absolutely. Additional taxation against virgin plastic production. You want to change everything? Here's utopia. Utopia is we ban virgin plastic production. Period. We phase it out over the course of time. We take 10 years. This is what's occurring. We allow very small amounts for, I don't know, some crazy application, but all of the technology we need, everything that needs to occur to recycle all the material back, even in medical grade equipment, is available. Mm-hmm. So we keep making more plastic. Ridiculous. If we stop virgin plastic production, we'll be forced to use the material that's already in the economy, already in the environment, would create more mining opportunities, would go be collecting it, returning the material to virgin state, and build a circular economy model. Forget virgin plastic production, remove the need and the reliance on the fossil fuel.
And ultimately even clean up the plastic that just
That's exactly what would occur, that people would go mine it.
It's carbon drawdown, but in the plastic as a metaphor.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let me ask about the materials processing. Are you optimistic, cautiously optimistic, that things like chemical or molecular recycling?
Yes,
actually
very, 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 very.
Why do you say that?
It is an en masse solution that allows you to take all material types and return them to a almost virgin state. It's at least progress. I'm alive and inspired to the knowing that nothing we need to do to solve any of our challenges is against the laws of physics. And when we make it easy and create a supply chain, here's the part of the challenge inside of that conversation as well is great, awesome. You know, we got like Eastman, who just invested $1 billion into France in a chemical recycling facility. Awesome. But if you don't build the supply chain, who cares? If you're not returning the material, who cares? If you're not creating the methodology to collect and return, then who cares? It's not going to happen. And especially, I mean, the forgotten, like Africa, it's the forgotten, like there's so limited, there's almost no recycling on the continent. It's crazy. And even we
get mail from Africans asking what they could possibly do.
It's crazy. And so like even there, like if you go build $1 billion facility, but if you don't build the supply chain and you only want to pay the abject poor a penny for a kilo of material, that's not going to happen either. Mm-hmm. So there has to be the opportunity to create and reward and return and reuse.
Which, in another way, you're describing all of the dimensions of fairness. And we have not really, as an economy, addressed fairness objectively for the past 50 years.
No, not at all.
So has Plastic Bank considered doing a private deposit system in the United States?
We were called. I mean, look at LA, Los Angeles, please, everyone. 70,000 people who are homeless. What a tragedy. Tragedy. America's a tragedy. Forgive me, but it's a tragedy.
We feel that way too.
What a lost opportunity, because it was captured into the talons of perverse capitalism.
Mm-hmm. So, every day at Earth911, we think about the first step in the recycling process, which is somebody has to put the stuff back into the system in order for it to start the circular process.
Back to the conversation, if every piece of packaging was worth $5 as a return process, we know that we wouldn't be having the conversation.
Yeah, and we'd be paying for stuff to get cleaned up for the first time.
Exactly. It's really quite simple, and it doesn't need to be $5. I use it as an an extreme example, of course, but it doesn't need to be. Like here in Vancouver, every bottle's 10 cents. Set aside euro. Germany is 25 cents euro per small little bottle. What's the recycling rate there? Approaching 100%.
Yeah.
Okay, in Vancouver as well. You can't, it's so rich. We're so rich here. Here's the beauty and the gift of that. It's so rich that once a week I go put money on the street and people come by and pick it up. Amazing. Okay, we know that works. Aluminum cans, it works.
Yeah, I mean, in Brazil, where there's a large impoverished population, they have a 99% aluminum recycling rate because people are picking it up. It has intrinsic value. We have to add that value to plastic, which is valueless.
Exactly. That's it. We were just taught in the inception of not the inception of the material, but in the inception of the introduction to the material, it was introduced post-war as an opportunity to dispose of so that you can continue to buy. They believed at that time that what would help restore and repair all of the damage from bombings and everything else was to start to create a consumer economy where more would be created. I kind of get it.
Now, you're at 3 billion bottles now. Mm-hmm. No one company is going to solve this problem entirely. But
not at all.
If we could catalyze a deposit system, mm-hmm. how much of the plastic that we're going to produce in 2030, hopefully mostly recycled, will be recycled?
By 2030, I mean, we're producing, around 400 to 500 billion kilos of plastic every year. Mm-hmm. That continues to rise. The emerging middle class in the areas of poverty, or where there was in those emerging economies, they continue to consume more. So as rising population, I agree that population will level at some point, but it's a rough number and say 500 billion kilo of new material produced every year.
So about 1.2 trillion pounds.
Over the next 7, yes, exactly. And over the next 7 years, 8 years, by 2030, that's a doubling of the material that we already have on the planet, mm-hmm. just in the next 8 years.
So there's a huge economic opportunity there if we just start turning the crank.
Oh, hey, it's like on a low side, it's $1 a kilo. Mm-hmm. On a low side. So think of my goodness, everyone. Just what's in the environment now is a $10 trillion of value. $10 trillion of value. It's 500 billion, estimated 500 billion by the World Bank to end extreme suffering, extreme poverty.
Right.
500 billion. We have 20 times the value.
Just lying around.
Just lying around. And that's only if we use it once.
So this is a great conversation, David, and I want to thank you for it. Let me ask in closing, and you've already called out a couple of things. Talk to the retailers that you shop.
Yes.
Being critical.
Yeah.
What can our listeners do today to help, including what they can do with Plastic Bank?
What they can do at large is look for and make decisions based on the repair and regeneration of humanity. Now, I say humanity, not the environment, because that's the solution, because it's a human issue. It's humanity that has brought us here. We keep wanting to talk about the climate. It's not, it's us. It's business change. Look for, participate with, be conscious with the stewardship of each other, the care of each other. Look to see how and what I do, how it may lift other. A compassionate society, we've lost sight of that. My goodness, we've become so selfish, so mired in the ego. It's been afflicted upon us, the space that we're not good enough. Buy more. You'll be good enough if you buy more, consume more, buy this energy drink, be connected to this brand.
There is an entire thread that I would love to explore sometime about the lionizing of the great man. Unfortunately, is usually the only one. But and now the branding, the personal brand of the great person, is what we all seem to aspire to and compare ourselves to. But in fact, they're just as human and ordinary as us. But when we don't have compassion, we can't see that even in ourselves.
Exactly. Well, yeah, exactly. And the whole conversation's been weaponized against us anyhow. It's been weaponized. It's been weaponized. Wow.
David, I want to thank you for taking time to talk with us today. It has been an extraordinary conversation.
No, thank you very much. Thanks for having me, and the best of luck to everything. It's an important message for everyone.
We've been speaking with David Katz, founder of Plastic Bank. You can learn more about Plastic Bank and become an ocean steward supporting the collection of plastic around the world at plasticbank.com. Plastic Bank is all one word, no space, no dash, plasticbank.com. You know, David's passion and frustration with the existing system is I think, emblematic of the challenges we face as a society. There is a way out. It's a clear path that can deliver a sustainable, carbon-positive society, but too many companies and governments have forsaken their responsibility to people and the environment. The answer for each of us is wrapped up in the hard decision to participate, to put ourselves out there by caring for each other, demanding that anyone making a mess be held accountable to clean it up, and fairly valuing the work necessary to collect and process not just the approximately 9 billion tons of plastic that's been produced since 1950, but everything we use. Just like nature, we need to process and reprocess and reuse everything over and over and over, not dig it up, process it once, and throw it away. So I hope you'll take a few minutes to share this podcast and all the others that we've done with your friends, family, neighbors, your coworkers. You all are the amplifiers that spread the ideas we collect here on Sustainability in Your Ear. Please let folks know that they can find the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, and all the other fine purveyors of podcast goodness. I will deeply appreciate your support. Thank you. I'm Mitch Ratcliffe. We'll be back with another innovator interview soon. In the meantime, folks, take care of yourself, take care of one another, and let's all take care of this beautiful planet of ours. Have a green day.